Bill Foster started his career as the coach at Chichester High School in suburban Philadelphia right after graduating from Elizabethtown College. At E-Town, as it was called, Bill Foster was the outstanding athlete his senior year and 1,000-point scorer on the basketball team. After 3 years at Chichester High School, he moved down the road to Abington High School, where in his third year, his team won the league title with a 19-2 record. At the end of that season, in May of 1960, he took his first college coaching position at Bloomsburg University of Pennsylvania. And again, it only took him 3 years for his team to be invited to what was then called the NCAA College Division Tournament. And that same year, in April of 1963, he took his first Division I job when he was appointed the head coach at Rutgers University.
First thing about Bill Foster is his accomplishment as a coach at Rutgers. At that time, we were freshmen, couldn't play on the varsity, and Jim Valvano and I would sit in the stands after the freshman games and look and say, my gosh, is Bill ever going to be able to turn it around? But he did, turn it around in a big way, took us our senior year to the NIT, and just did a fantastic job. The other thing Bill did is unleash Jim Valvano on the basketball world. Jimmy obviously played for Coach Foster, coached for him, had tremendous respect for Bill Foster. I'm not sure if there are many people that had more of an influence on Jimmy and his coaching than Bill Foster. Basically, our senior year, his whole goal in offense was to work so that by the end of the season, we were just on our own. We weren't calling plays, we weren't doing anything, we were just playing basketball the way he wanted to play.
Well, I think about Bill Foster and what an impact he made in the coaching profession. He was so creative, so innovative, from the stationery to everything he did. He was so organized. He put Rutgers totally on the map in basketball with his unbelievable genius way of doing things. What an impact that team has made.
Well, after a very successful tenure at Rutgers, Bill Foster was recruited to go west and now coach the University of Utah. And he asked me to come along with him. So here we are, two Eastern dudes going out west for the first time and seeing what life was going to be like up in the Mountain West. We were certainly like some ducks out of water because neither one of us had spent a whole lot of time out in the mountains, and so it was a matter of starting from scratch, and it took 3 years, but by the third year, we had put together a team that was pretty strong and ended up going to the NIT and breaking all the NIT scoring records in the 4-game span that we played in the NIT.
Let me tell you the story about the game that was 7-0 at halftime. Duke is playing North Carolina. The tip is controlled by Jaminski. He taps to Gene Banks. Gene feeds Vince Taylor in for a layup, 2-0 Duke. We go back into the famed matchup zone defense. Dean Smith refuses to attack. There's no shot clock now. So I'm sitting next to Coach Foster, and as time goes on, I tap him on the shoulder and I say, Coach, what do you think? And he just looks at me and says nothing. Goes back to looking at the game. You know, his chin is in his hand, thinking about what he might want to do. A little more time goes by and I tap him on the shoulder again and I say, Coach, what do you think? And he looks at me and he kind of gives me a dirty look. And so the game continues, 2-0 in favor of Duke, the number 2 and 3 teams in the nation battling it out. Finally, I turn to Coach Foster, tap him on the shoulder for the third time in the first half, and I say, Coach, what do you think? And he turns to me and he says, I think Vince is going to get the most outstanding player of the game.
When I visited Duke, there was just a camaraderie and a sense of humor, and there was opportunity there, and no promises were ever made. Coach Foster was just really straightforward, and when he recruited me early in the fall, he said, you know, if you commit early, we will not recruit over you. We will not bring in another guy with your type of skills and talents. Of course, they brought in Gene Banks, who had tremendously more talent, much more talent, and wasn't a competitor for my position anyway. But what a combo that turned out to be. Gene and I, just the way he let us develop and encouraged us to play our games and complement each other. But all the coaching staff at Duke and Coach Foster really were chemists. They were alchemists, if you wish, the way they did things. And, you know, fortunately, it was like catching lightning in a bottle that year in '78 when we went to the finals. And I'm just happy that I was in that bottle. Miss you, Coach.
Well, the first times I remember about Coach Foster, the first time I went into his office, pretty much I was really trying to go in and give him an excuse to get out of something he wanted me to do or practice or something. And as I'm in his office, he's on the 2 phones in both ears. He's moving around behind his desk. He's constantly fiddling with papers. So he's doing 15,001 things in one time. So I sit down, says, hold on 1 minute. So he reached down while he's on both phones talking to 2 people at one time. He pulls out the drawer a can of aerosol spray, and he sets it on top of the table right in front of me. And I'm sitting there, I'm looking at the can. On the can it says, bullshit repellent. I'm a young guy, I'm a freshman. I'm coming in, I'm trying to figure this out. He just put this can up, and he's still doing things all around me at the same time while I'm waiting for him to get off the phone. He gets off one phone, he says goodbye. Gets off the other phone, says goodbye. He comes over to the can, he opens the can, and he starts spraying the room. He sprays it, he puts the can, closes it, puts that, and he sits down, and he says, okay, Pink, what is it? At that time, I got up, didn't say a word, walked out the office. So that's one of the moments that holds dear to me. The one that holds even twice more dear to me is when my sister died while I was in school. He had called me into his office and he had said to me, Tink, listen, your mother called and said your sister passed away. Let's get you acclimated, what you need to do, and if you want to go home. I said, yes. He helps me get all the arrangements straightened out and together, and I catch a flight and I go home. As I am home, my mother and I were getting the necessary arrangements done. It was just a few family members. And as my mother and I walked into the small little funeral place, sitting in the front row was Coach Foster. Now, I don't know how he got there, how he flew from Durham and got there and sat in that seat. And he was present there, which spoke the most greatest value of a man's dignity and heart to another man, or a young man as myself.
You got to realize I was like the only signed freshman coming in. They had everybody back. So Coach Foster, you know, he was the type of guy, I could have gone anywhere in the country, pretty much. I was McDonald's All-American and all that. But he was a guy that just made you feel at ease, you know. And he was really always sarcastic. And I didn't really know that, you know, because, you know, you had all kind of guys, all types of characters on the team. And, you know, as a freshman, you know, Spinarco was already there. They just came off going to the championship. And everybody knew Coach. Coach had that, he was sarcastic. So he would say things, I always thought he was serious, you know, all the time, you know. And everybody would look at me because I was the only freshman. I didn't really know all the, you know, and he would play so many jokes because he would say something and I was thinking he was serious. I was looking at him and everybody else would be busting up laughing behind me. But he had a way of keeping everybody loose. No matter how tight it was, he'd keep you loose. He'd say a joke or something like that, and he kept you loose. You know, he didn't let you. He really had a fiery competitiveness in him also. I think if we won, I think we went on a winning streak my sophomore year. He wore the same suit till we lost. So I think we started off 15-0 my sophomore year. So he wore that same suit. I'm pretty sure he wore the same suit every game.
As I arrived at Duke University, I discovered that Coach Foster had paired me up with Kenny Denard to room together, and he also paired me up to room with Gene Banks on the road trips, on the road games. So those were the three freshmen that came in that year, myself, Kenny, and Gene in 1977-78. And he had paired myself and Kenny up because both our fathers had gone to Georgia Tech to go to college, and he thought that would be that's what he told me at least, that would be a good connection for us to be roommates, is because both our fathers had been at Georgia Tech. Now, what I came to find out later is that Coach Foster had paired me up because they thought that I might have a little bit of positive influence on them and maybe help keep them out of trouble, of which, in many respects, I failed miserably. One story about Coach Foster that I would like to relate is really at the end of his time at Duke. He was making his decision, trying to make his decision whether he was going to take the South Carolina offer. And he asked me to ride with him to the ACC tournament practice. And I rode with him alone in his car, and he divulged his offer and what he was thinking about and what it would mean for his future and his family and the great offer South Carolina had made him. And he treated me like an adult and really asked for my encouragement, my support. Even though I was going to be a senior the next year, he knew that senior class was very special to him. And he treated me a man-to-man conversation, and it was a great conversation, and I really appreciated that time, that hour spent with him going from Durham to Greensboro.
We have so many stories we could tell about the coach. We love the coach. Remember the night we met was in, I think, around 1978. It was one of our first dates ever with Kenny Rogers. We're parked outside the Charlotte Coliseum. And our bus driver comes back and says, "There's a big tall boy out there says his name's Bill Foster and he coaches Duke, wants to come on the bus. Should I let him on?" And we all went, "Yes, please let him on." And that started a friendship that has lasted well until he left us. We miss the coach. Good friend. Very good friend. We love him. All right, this is a basketball story. He was coaching South Carolina. Had the Oak Ridge boys come in there and sing the national anthem for the South Carolina game, and they were playing Notre Dame. And he let us sit right behind the bench. So every time he had a huddle, we could lean in and listen. And it was really fun for us because we're all big basketball fans. And, he was telling his team every timeout not to let John Paxson beat this team. He's the best player in college right now. Whatever we do, if we lose, we lose. But we're not going to let Paxson beat us. What Paxson had 42 points at maybe the first half.
Coach had this wit about him. He was so funny, but you could not laugh, especially following a loss in the locker room. His message was always very clear, but at the same time his point got across. I remember when we played at Marshall. That was in his first season at Carolina, third game, I think, of the season. And we got beat 116 to 80-something. Coach's post-game comments were, "Marshall played like the thundering herd, and we were the lumbering herd." Or when we lost to William and Mary, Coach remarked, "Thank God William did not show up tonight, or we would have lost even more." Or during a practice when the starting five could not score for several minutes, Coach blew the whistle, said, "Let me see the ball." He then drop-kicked the ball into the upper row of the Coliseum and said, "Something is wrong with the ball. Get another one." There are many, many more memories like that, but Coach was always deep into the hearts of his team. You know, South Carolina was blessed to have Coach Foster, classy man, a true professional, always humble but hungry, and committed to his players. He loved his players. Because of that, we are all better. Thank you, Coach.
My fond memories of Mr. Bill Foster. I tell you, he was a awesome guy, and most of all, his sense of humor was the best in the world. He always had something real funny to say, even in the midst of serious practice or serious game. But one of my main memories was when Dwayne Kendall and Linwood Moy, they were two of the biggest guys on that team, but they were the slowest. And I just remember when in the middle of practice, those two was guarding each other one-on-one, going up and down the court. And Bill Foster watched them two guard each other going up and down the court. And he just turned around and laughed and looked at the coaches and looked at everybody. That's a hell of a foot race there, buddy. Look at those two elephants get up and down the court. And his sense of humor, and everybody just fell out in the middle of the court, just started laughing. But that's just the type of guy he was. He always prepared humor, and in the same token, he was able to make us play hard at the same time. What a great, great guy and a great memory, and I just thank Bill Foster for all he's done for me.
Coach Foster took over at Northwestern before my junior year in college, and he didn't know me, and I knew of him but didn't know him, and little did I know it was going to begin a 30-year-plus relationship versus player-coach, and then I had the opportunity to work with him, but more importantly, he became a very good friend and mentor to me, helped me out along the way as he did so many other guys that played for him, and he always put a smile on your face with his outlook, his quick wit, but more importantly, his loyalty to people and things that meant a great deal to him. And because of that, I was very honored to not only play for him, but over the course of 3 decades, talk to him at least once a month, stay in touch with him, and more importantly, he took a great interest in me as a person, and I'll forever be grateful for that. After Coach took over, after about 2 or 3 weeks, pretty significant amount of stress with the coaching change and kind of learning the system, and Coach pulled me aside after that 2 or 3 week period of time, and he said, Sean, look, people kind of told me that you were going to be one of my best players, and I wanted everyone to start with a clean slate, and I didn't really talk to anybody about it, but after 2 or 3 weeks, I really think that you are our best player. And I started to feel very, very confident, and then he turned and kind of gave me a look, and he said, we're in big trouble, and he walked away.
Bill Foster was such a great man. He was wonderful to the Hall of Fame, having served on the board for over 15 years, almost two decades of involvement with the Hall of Fame. Bill was just someone really special, very dedicated member of the Hall of Fame Board of Trustees. He also served as chairman for a couple of years back in the mid-'90s, and oversaw a lot of change at the Hall, the preparations for the building of this new iconic building that we have now. Bill was very involved with that transition, and I know John DeLiva extends his thoughts and to the family as well, and we're just so sad that Bill is not with us anymore, but have some just tremendous memories of his involvement and his mentorship. One of those board members that really sincerely cared and wanted to see Hall of Fame